right, good evening, all. We are going to get the Administration and Public Works Committee meeting started for Monday, July 9th, 2018. We have a quorum. First, I'm going to start with the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting dated June 25th, 2018. So motion for approval.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. For those who don't follow us weekly, I want to let you know, starting tonight, we are going to be using the consent calendar for AP&W meetings, which means that the kind of more routine bills and payroll and things like that will be voted in one motion unless one of the sitting committee members pulls it off. So similar to consent agenda that happens in full city council. And we're doing this just as a matter of trying to save a little more time as our meetings run pretty late and we usually have a lot of public comment at city council. So if you're following along on the agenda where it says consent calendar, Roman numeral 3, all those items from A1 to A6 are considered consent agenda items. So we won't have a long discussion unless someone here in the dais asks for it. Can the record also reflect that Alderman Ruth Simmons has arrived? All right, so I'm going to call the consent calendar now. Payroll June 11th, 2018 through June 24th, 2018, the amount of $3,235,279.13 is for action. The bills list dated July 10th, 2018, in the amount of $2,617,387.83. Also, we have A3, which is a 2017 comprehensive annual financial report.
Take that off, please.
Okay, Alderman Rainey has asked for that to be removed. A4 is a contract with Grumman Butkus Associates for the Lorraine Morton Civic Center HVAC Architectural Engineering Services. That is for the amount of $47,330 paid for from the general obligation funds. A5, the contract with Llewellyn Technology for citywide ARC flash program, in the amount of $35,575 paid for from general obligation funds. And A6 is the approval of 2018 pay station expenses to Total Parking Solutions in the amount of $33,000 coming out of the parking fund. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda carries. So I will now go back to beginning our items for consideration, adding on A3. So that's the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Staff is recommending that City Council accept and file the 2017 Audited Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Alderman Rainey?
Yes. I was having a conversation prior to the meeting with one of the auditors, and I just thought I would mention, Madam Chair, that this is a really important document. There is not one penny that this city receives or spends or earns an interest that is not noted in this report. And I think at some point in time that our council ought to receive or have a workshop on the value of this report and an explanation of this report by our very highly qualified auditors who are very brilliant and who have, been around for a long time and who can share with us the importance and what a wonderful resource this document is. Anything you want to know about city spending or generating revenue or anything is in this one document. Everything you ever wanted to know is in that document. And we just don't refer to it enough. And so I just think that we ought to have a full-blown evening or at least an hour of presentation sometime. Secondly, having finished with that, I would like to know, do you think, having just read those few items, that having them on a consent agenda is saving you a lot of time?
That saved us about 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure. However, our CFO is here, and I know he does actually have a presentation about the CAFR. Is it CAFR? Come on up.
Yeah.
CAFR. And if you can also, in your comments tonight, just explain, because I believe this is also available for the public in the clerk's office. Is that correct?
I mean, it is on the website. Good evening,
Okay.
Madam Chair and the members of the committee. Yes, the report is on the website too, and we send it out to some of the grantees and all that. Yeah, the statute says that who gets this report. So yeah, it is a public document after you accept it and place it on the file. And we have it shared with you for your review. The rules say that the auditors have to present this in person to one of the standing committee or the governing board of any municipality or the government. So that's how we kind of decided to go with the Administration and Public Works Committee.
Okay, great. Well, do you want to go
And
through
I
your
think
slides here?
I will introduce so that I don't take up his time. Dan Berg, who is a partner on the project from the Second Company, who are our auditors, he would just briefly go over the things, and then if you guys have any questions, either he or I'll answer those.
Okay, great.
My comments had to do with an evening, like a third Monday or something, where we could actually have not so much just a presentation of these exact numbers, but what the audit does and how we can use it.
Yes, and I do agree. I have spoken to an auditor. I don't know if I spoke to you. I have called them on my own, and I have a copy of the CAFR on my desk. So if you can take us through a quick presentation here for those who are watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
First of all, I want to say that we have two documents. One of them is
Yes.
the CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's in PDF format as well, and it's been sent to you a little over a week ago. This is comprehensive, meaning that it's ready to be submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for the Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's received the award in the past, and we believe it will in the future. What that really means, though, is it has, in addition to the financial statements that are required by GAAP, it has an introductory section, which includes a transmittal letter, and then comes our audit opinion. The audit opinion is what's commonly referred to as a clean opinion. We refer to it as unmodified. It's the best opinion we're allowed to give. It simply says that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position and results of operation of all the funds of the city. After that is the management discussion and analysis. That's prepared by staff. It compares last year to this year and tries to explain the differences that occurred between the two. Highly recommended reading for elected officials and interested parties. It's very well read by the bond houses, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, et cetera. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is that being a comprehensive annual financial report, it has a statistical section in the back. And I find that my elected officials really like flipping through that last 20 or 25 pages or so, because it shows trends over a 10-year period of your equity positions, your fund balances, your revenues, your expenses, et cetera. Also your debt and your taxing levels for the past 10 years. And it also shows other overlapping taxing districts. The audit went pretty well this year. We had significantly less adjusting journal entries than we did in the prior year. Those are in your board communication. The board communication under a black cover, and it's entitled Auditor's Communication to the City Council, includes any findings we might have that we feel need to be presented to the elected officials. The smaller comments that are more or less inconsequential and more recommendations for improvement are also distributed to the city manager and to the CFO. But this includes a couple larger items and shows you the actual adjusting journal entries. We're also required to report any disagreements we had with management, any issues incurred along the way. There's none of those in there. If you see the word no in the first 5 pages, that's a good thing. So thank you to staff. Thank you to the city for their cooperation in getting those number of adjusting journal entries down. The audit went very smoothly this year. The city chose to have us write the comprehensive annual financial report, mostly due to a staffing issue that occurred during the audit. So we did so. Last year, the city wrote it. This year, we wrote it. So we expect the city to write it again next year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about the process or about the documents you have before you.
You do a separate report for HUD?
There is a single audit, so when an entity spends more than $750,000 of federal money in a given year, a special report needs to be done. That's in process now by a subcontractor of ours in the cities, and it's due within 9 months of the fiscal year end, so it's got to be filed by the end of September, sorry. So that's still in process.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are into our full agenda. Alderman Rainey, can you start A7, please? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do that with everyone else? I'm sorry, so A3 was pulled off. I need to have a vote. So the motion was seconded, right? It wasn't moved and seconded? All right, so I'm going to read A3 so we can get that on the agenda. A3 was the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report to accept and place on file. Can I get a motion to do so, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Alderman Rainey, A7.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Items for consideration, A7, Robert Crown Community Center Ice Complex and Library Construction Manager Services Contract, Construction Contract Award. It's recommended that we authorize the manager to execute this contract with Bully Andrews in the amount of $47,741,803. This is requiring a supermajority, two-thirds vote by the Evanston City Council. I move approval.
Second.
All right, any lights for discussion? All right, so no lights for discussion. I assume this will have a long conversation at full council. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our motion carries. Alderman Sufferman, A8, please.
Item A8 is the consulting contract amendment number 2 for bidding, negotiations, permitting, construction administration, and lead commissioning services for the Robert Crown Community Center Ice Complex and Library project. The amendment will modify the existing agreement from $2,146,833 to $3,246,483, and this is for action.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, seeing no lights for discussion, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Alderman Ruth Simmons, can you take 8-9, please?
Yes, thank you. A9, Transportation and Parking Committee and staff recommend City Council adopt Resolution 48R18, authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Chicago Transit Authority for the modernization of the CTA Purple Line in Evanston with a focus on support for the Davis Street CTA station. With a local match contribution from the Washington National Tax Increment Finance District, funding will be from Washington National TIF Fund. It's for action.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We do have a presentation here from staff and CTA.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Public Works, Administration and Public Works Committee, and Deputy City Manager Richardson. My name is Jessica Heinck, and I am the Transportation and Mobility Coordinator. The CTA has come to share a presentation about this project. I would like to note that the project was approved by the Transportation and Parking Committee at their May 30th, 2018 meeting, and it was recommended that the City Council approve this project. And I will turn it over to Leah for further details.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. I'm really happy to be here tonight, and I'm joined by a couple people from our staff too, Marlise Fratnardo, who's an architectural historian and a project manager, as well as Catherine Branch with our Government Community Relations Group. As Jessica said, I'm Leah Mooney. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Policy. I will make this brief tonight since you have a lot on your agenda, and I understand that's a goal. So we're very excited to begin the next phase of the Red Purple Modernization Project, which will continue an important initiative, and we're grateful to partner with Evanston. Where does it point? So the next slide shows the Red Ahead program. I'll just keep moving. There we go. Oh, thank you. Where did I put it? There. Great. Which is, the red and purple are the backbone, really, of the CTA rail system. And the Red Purple Modernization Program is one of the pieces of work that's happening as part of the Red Ahead program. They're right. Got it. Just have to do it right. Okay. And so the Red and Purple Modernization Program itself is focusing on the North Red and Purple branches, which they deliver about 130 rides, actually over 130,000 rides on an average weekday. It's a series of projects that will improve the corridor from Linden through Belmont, and it is actually a fiscally constrained project for the region. So I think it's interesting to note that Evanston, service in Evanston through the CTA has been here over 100 years. We actually began in 1908 before the CTA existed. Trackage rates were secured with the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad, and those are the tracks that meet the L at Wilson Station. And then it was realigned and electrified. It was then extended from about University Place to Linden Avenue in 1912. So it's been around a long time. Some of the stretches were actually elevated in the late 1920s, early 1930s. It's an old piece of infrastructure, and it is in need of a serious upgrade. So that's what we're going to be focused on here. The goals for this are to expand capacity, speed service, improve accessibility, build modern facilities, as well as supporting economic development and improving the customer's experience. The objectives of the RPM program fulfill the goal from the regional strategic plan, which is to protect our existing transit investment. The plan will allow for ridership growth and better access by building modern facilities that are accessible and allowing us to run longer and more frequent trains as well. We want to improve the customer experience so people want to ride transit, and we want to support economic development around the transit stations. This is actually a photo of Dempster Station, which dates to 1919. So many of you know that RPM Phase 1, which is in the city of Chicago, incorporates a flyover, which actually helps throughput for the Purple Line as well. And it addresses the stretch of track north of Wilson through Bryn Mawr Station. That's outlined in red here. So that's we have secured funding for that through the Core Capacity Program, which is a federal capital investment grant program, as well as other funding sources. And all the areas in purple are what we would address as future phases of RPM. So leveraging core capacity funds for those phases, as we did for Phase 1, requires that we analyze the project to prove its ability to increase capacity by at least 10% and to look at eligible project elements. And those include things that are listed up here, such as station expansion, platform lengthening, curve straightening, things like that that are listed there. How we package them will impact how we're able to make this project eligible for the federal funding source. So in addition to the capacity increases, the future phases of RPM will bring needed upgrades to century-old infrastructure. And this will include station and platform upgrades, accessibility improvements, and track and structure rehabilitation, as well as power, signal, and communications upgrades. These elements that are identified strictly for state of good repair are not eligible for core capacity funding, so a big piece of what we're trying to do is maximize our eligibility there. Next steps. So we have secured funds through the UWP program, and we would use this to match those. And we would We've also applied for Invest in Cook funds as well. So all of that would be used to advance the future phases of RPM through planning. The next phase that we would focus on getting into is the formal project development phase for the Capital Investment Grant Program, and position it to enter that formal phase. So we'll be looking at defining the project, developing conceptual design and potential phasing, completing early environmental reviews, engaging stakeholders, and undertaking public outreach activities. We will also analyze financial planning concepts for multiple funding strategies. That might include federal, FTA and FHWA, state and local sources, as well as potential value capture opportunities. And that is all. Thank you.
Any questions? All right, I have a couple of questions. Sure. This might be also for staff since she wrote the memo to us. So can you, well, maybe Ms. CTA, I'm sorry, what was your name?
Oh, Leah.
Leah. If you can, I know we're in the super early phases, and I know that the red line modernization was talked about for a very long time. Can you give us any kind of time frame on when we'll get to the project development phase?
Sure. In the interest of abbreviating this presentation, I took out that timeline that I showed at the Transportation Committee meeting, but basically we are hoping to, over the next couple years, be able to position this to enter project development, which is a formal 2-year phase.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then, Jessica, can you just clarify a bit here? I know that the presentation talked about the modernization having an ADA compliant piece, which is very big here. We have a lot of old stations with stairs. However, kind of in the memo, it talks about a focus on support for the Davis Street train station. So can you kind of clarify those two, please?
Yes. So the Washington National TIF supports that area and the downtown district, and so this funding is really in support of what will make those station improvements more enhanced and better for the entire line in general. And so we're looking at modernizing the entire line in order to utilize this Washington National TIF to really support the purpose of the TIF as well. However, the broader project beyond what is this project, which is for planning, the project development phase, that will require additional funding for station improvements that include accessibility of all stations and not just the ones in the downtown area. And so this project is looking at the Purple Line as a whole, but our funding is being focused on the intent of the TIF.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to ask Ms. Leonard?
I was going to add, good evening, Johanna Leonard, Community Development Director. Illinois TIF law will allow funds within a TIF to be spent outside of the TIF if it is for infrastructure supporting the TIF. So I think that gets to your question of why the focus on the Davis Street station. We see the Davis Street station as a hub of the center of our town, for our downtown. It has some of the higher ridership numbers of onboard lightings and departures. So the focus being the downtown, but if you can imagine that because of the accessibility issues, people needing to travel from downtown to other parts of Evanston or from other parts of Evanston to downtown, that is part of the TIF and the mission of improving the downtown within that TIF to support that station. So we're seeing that as the magnet, but the TIF law says we have to focus on the infrastructure serving that, but that infrastructure travels to Howard Street, it travels north, so it's all part of the same piece, but we have to, you'll notice in the MOU, it focuses on the Davis Street station as the part that leverages us to access the dollars.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for the presentation. I see no lights for questions, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to A10, the resolution 27-R-18, mutual termination of lease of city-owned property located at 2222 Oakton Street with Smiley Brothers Draft and Package LLC. Staff has recommended we adopt this resolution authorizing city manager to execute a mutual termination agreement lease with between the City of Evanston and Smiley Brothers. This is for action.
Move approval?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So are there any lights for conversation, discussion?
I know our staff has been talking to Smiley Brothers, so maybe there should be.
Is there any update outside of what's in the packet, Ms. Leonard?
And they're here?
Good evening. There's no update, but Mr. Smiley's here to participate in this discussion and answer any questions. I don't know if you want to hear from him tonight.
Okay. All right, I guess I have a comment. This is obviously very disappointing for the city. This is a building that, we feel like is a great use, but obviously did not move forward. So according to the memo we have by staff, looks like the agreement at this point is for Mr. Smiley and his associates to pay $40,937.49 for 3 months of lost rent, as well as some additional monies for, I guess, utilities. I know that there has been, or I guess I can speak for myself to say, I want to be supportive of your business here in Evanston. I do, use it myself. However, this is quite disappointing, I think, as I personally learned that you have moved your business elsewhere and now are unable to complete your lease here. So I would love to have our staff and Mr. Smiley continue to work to see how else we can kind of have a better taste in our mouth about ending this lease, for lack of a better term. I don't necessarily know if we want to have that discussion, if anyone has suggestions on that right now, or if the rest of my peers are okay with where we're at and we want to discuss it in full council, but those are my general thoughts about it. Yes, Alderman Zuckerman.
Sure. I think it's a discussion we should have at full council.
Okay.
I think the amount of money to get out of a lease that would have been worth $1.6 million is too low. And we can talk about it when everyone's here later. But
Okay.
that's my opinion.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. There's no more light.
I
Oh.
do have a caveat, though. I just would like to, and it goes to A11, which, just as a precursor, needs a lot of work in my mind. Imagine if we had signed a contract for sale on that property with Smiley Brothers, and they had agreed to purchase it, and then, actually purchased it, and then found that they couldn't run their business. We would be left without a building, and they would be able to flip it, or they're not that kind of people, but let's say they were. We would be in a real mess, and that is part of my argument for not selling that building to the next user. At first, I'm just saying.
Okay, so-
This could have been a huge disaster. We have a beautiful building that requires very little upkeep. It's not a Harley Clark, we hose it down, we mow the grass, that's it. It's not a money pit like some of our buildings are. So if we just keep that in mind. So let's move on.
All right, so A10 for the lease termination of 2222 Oakton Street has been moved and seconded. No more lights for discussion. All those in favor of moving it to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so motion carries. Alderman, who's next? Oh, Alderman Rainey, A11, please.
This is a resolution, it's 47R18. It is issuance of a request for qualifications/proposals for the reuse of the recycling center at 2222 Oakton Street, otherwise known as the Recycling Center. The proposed timeline is enclosed in memo, and if authorized by the council, staff will update the RFQ/P document. It includes professional real estate development people, that phrase at least 1,000 times, and I think it definitely has a bias towards the sale of the property.
All right, so we have to move and second it.
I move it,
All right, so it's been moved for
Second.
introduction. Thank you, second.
and I
Okay.
move that we hold it in committee until we get it fixed.
All right, are there any other comments on the information in the packet? So there is a,
I'm not holding it yet. I'd like to speak to it.
okay, so,
This proposal, Madam Chair, is written as though we're looking for a big New York developer to come in and create a multi-million-dollar high-rise. I mean, it's just way off the charts as far as I'm concerned. It just doesn't speak to me at all, and it doesn't speak to that site, I don't think. I mean, we don't want any fly-by-night people, but it just, I'd like to know who wrote it and what were we thinking here? I'm not sure, and no, none of us had any input to this. I mean, I'm not sure. It also has a date of like today you're going to issue it? Were you hoping that we were going to pass this tonight?
all right, so Johanna, Ms. Leonard.
Good evening. So this is almost an identical document to what was issued several years ago when we first went around with some updates. I don't think that the date, this is a draft, and it doesn't look like the draft watermark traveled through, but I don't think we were assuming it would be approved. I think that had just been a placeholder from a previous draft. We weren't trying to be presumptuous that this would be approved tonight, and we would release it before the end of the evening. Right. And so I think that where we were trying to map out how long it would take, and in response to a previous meeting, trying to shorten that process and bring it under, somewhere between 5 to 7 months from issuing to bringing something before council to be considered.
I once had an occasion to be involved with the sale of a rather important property in this community that was sold. And the minute it was sold, it went up for sale. And that's the way this is written. It's scaring me that that's going to happen here. And it's really scary that we have no control if we sell this property. I'm really going to urge the council to, I think a fabulous way to do this would be to do a lease, to own. And I have no concerns whether we, pour all the money into the down payment. I don't care about that, but not to sell it outright. It's a big mistake. And I've gotten some letters, believe it or not, from people who aren't even in my ward who say that's a great idea. Don't let it go immediately.
All right, City Manager Popkewitz.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening. As I look at the document, I really see one page that is requesting information specifically, and that is page 415 of your packet. It asks for project description. It asks the indication to lease or purchase. It asks for estimated total investment. I think that's consistent with the discussions that the council's had. It's one page of what is a 10-page document, roughly, most of which are maps and photos. So my understanding from the council is that they're looking for proposals for either lease or for purchase. We ask in the proposal on the one page where we ask for specific information if you'd like to lease or purchase. So I would certainly appreciate the committee's help if we're off base here with the one page of questions. I think we need some additional guidance.
All right, thank you. Alderman Suffin and Alderman Ruth Simmons, any comments here?
No.
Okay.
I would like to see proposals for lease or purchase.
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, I believe that's what we're asking here.
Okay, and so I am okay with this. Obviously, we have some dates and such to look at. I have a couple other very small suggestions that I can talk to staff about, but
You should talk to all of us about it. I mean, that's more important.
I mean, they're very, I had the same date questions, but I assume we just put those dates in there to get through. I can thumb through to see what my other ones are. And that involves me kind of scrolling here, so give me a minute. Let me see where my thumb notes are here. Anyhow, overall, I am ready to move forward with a proposal, and the RFPQ for the project, understanding that we don't know what the future holds, if we are even going to get anyone to lease or to, purchase it. Sorry, a lot of pages here to work through. So one of my questions has to do with the tours of the property, and I asked this because I know this came up with, I believe, not Smiley Brothers, Harley Clark. Are those going to be, it doesn't say, but are those going to be required tours? I know that was one of the steps when I looked at the Harley Clark issue, that they were required, and someone who didn't meet one of the requirements was not able to put in their proposal.
Generally, they're not required when we do this sort of work. I think Harley Clark was a specific property.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure people were completely understanding of the condition. Certainly, if the council wishes that we can make it required, but our practice would not be required.
Okay.
So on page 414, I think it's just looking at one proposed visit.
Right. So I guess I just want to clarify that because we did it before. And then my other question had to do with, sorry, I'm just a little faster here. Sorry, I thought I'd have a little more time to get this together. Oh, so remembering from the Smiley Brothers arrangement where the city had looked at updating I think putting some money into the parking lot and such. Maybe this is too far ahead, but I guess I wanted to have a little more understanding as to if we went to a lease or even a lease option, if that were something that we were going to consider revisiting. Again, it might be a little early to have that, but if other people who might come forward for the project know that we offered that before, I think it's worth at least us being ready to have a discussion about.
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, on page 420 of your packet is the schematic that we prepared for the parking with the previous plan with Smiley Brothers. So we'll make sure that is referenced appropriately so people understand that this was something that was previously contemplated.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I'm ready to move this forward. Oh, sorry. Alderman Rainey has the light on.
Well, I noticed that there was a mention that once the property was assumed by the lessee or purchaser, that they would assume the property taxes. But that followed a sentence in the document that said currently it is off the tax rolls. It's hard to assume taxes of something that's off the tax rolls. It didn't actually say that it would be placed on the tax rolls by the...
We can revise that.
Yeah, you need to
we
put
will.
that in
We will
there.
be more clear.
And
on that.
that it not be an entity that would pay in lieu of taxes. It would have to be a property taxpayer.
Okay.
I'm very concerned about that because people who pay in lieu of taxes frequently, end up not paying in lieu of taxes because there's no requirement that they pay in lieu of taxes.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no further lights, all those in favor of moving this to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Alderman Suffredin, A12, please.
Item 812 is ordinance 70-018, amending City Code Section 1011-7, Schedule 7A, passenger loading zones, public carrier stops, blah, blah, blah. It creates a loading zone at 1007 Church Street. This is for introduction.
Approval?
Thank you. I can second that. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Alderman Ruth Simmons, 13, please.
A13, the Transportation Parking Committee recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 75-018, amending the City Code Section 1011-7B, loading zones, to add a loading zone at 609 South Boulevard. This is for introduction.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so that finishes our agenda for Administration Public Works. I'm sorry. Do we have any items for discussion, communication? No. All right. So I'm going to move that we adjourn this meeting. It is 6:52, and P&W will start at 7? Public Works will start at 7 o'clock, or...
Second.
I'm sorry, Planning and Development, I said Public Works. At 7. You second?
Yep.
All right. Motion carries.